want to jump into things because these are capped, you know,
Oh,
like they
okay.
don't go on forever. And I want to try to keep our conversation kind of concise, maybe like 40, 45 minutes. And then I want to let everybody know who's watching, if there are questions you all want to ask, if you can, just because like when you type something, it goes by really quickly. If
Yeah,
you
I mean,
can,
it's
maybe
better
wait
if it's
till
after.
later.
Yeah.
And, you know, and if they type something in now, I'm going to try to throw that in, but it happens very quickly. And my apologies if somebody writes something and I don't see it or Joe doesn't see it, then, you know, it's just because of the format, you know. I'm sure there's some weird app that allows you to have a laptop to read everything, but
There is. I think it's a Chrome extension, but yeah.
I mean,
I'm not using it. I'm just on the phone.
I like when I do these things, usually I'm talking to a pizza maker and you know, it's a conversation that will dabble into the questions because people ask about pizza.
Right.
But I feel like, oh, the dedicated question box, Adam Breyer, thank you. Oh, I forgot that there's that. So there is a little box that where people can write questions.
Okay.
And oh, thank you. And also Savvy Savs wrote in there, which is also really good too. Anyway, if you have any questions, write it in that little question area, which I'm not totally sure how to do, but I can see it. And Joe, can you see it as well on your
I
side?
can see people commenting right now. It's like over my face.
Okay. Well, anyway, there I see a question mark bubble. I can hit that. I'll see questions. I promise I'll get into that.
I'm not sure if I can see that, but yeah, I can see the comments.
And also, this will be posted up in the feed afterwards. So, like,
Unless you're recording the screen, the questions won't be there, but I'm recording the screen, so we can talk later and see. Yeah.
great. Anyway, we're here to talk about a bunch of things. Just for background, Joe and I have talked before, but never
Yeah.
met.
Never met.
Certainly not in person. So this is also great because I already saw some people writing in the thing like, oh, this is what you look like. I thought you'd be an old guy. I saw somebody wrote that.
Yeah, I thought you'd be taller. You know, I get it all. But
Whatever. But anyway, thanks for joining me. This is definitely like, I forgot who it was, but somebody was like, oh, I'm impressed that you got that interview. You know, like it made me wonder, why haven't you done any other like live interviews or things like this before?
I did a live interview with pancakes and protein shakes. It was just an impromptu thing. I've done video with Meal Mag, which is a local mag out here. So like I'm a known thing. I think there's rumors that I'm a collective of people or a robot, but
Like
there's
Shakespeare.
evidence. This is some of it.
Cool. Well, I mean, I fall into that because I don't know, you know, I had not seen those things before. And some other people agree because they're excited to see that like, you have
But
a face.
we've
But
talked on the phone, but yeah, I mean, I'm real.
yeah. I know your voice, but like, anyway. And we had talked on the phone before because like some of the things that you'd posted, you know, of course, I know a lot of people in the pizza world, and I was curious about your perspective because for everybody who's joining who I don't know personally, let me just give you a quick explanation about who I am because I think a lot of you are coming here through Joe and maybe need to know some background. So my name is Scott. I run a company based in New York called Scott's Pizza Tours. I take people on tours of significant pizzerias, not so much so that they see those pizzerias, but so they can understand what format those pizzerias are going for and what the difference is between what they're trying to achieve. So different styles, different features, understanding the science, the history, the culture behind them. That's my background. So I work with a lot of pizzerias. I also run a nonprofit called Slice Out Hunger, which works with a lot of pizzerias around the country. And the goal of Slice Out Hunger is to support food insecurity organizations fighting food insecurity, I should say. And we do that through pizzerias. So I exist in the pizza world. Full disclosure, I don't read a lot of like food media and food writing. Usually people will send me things that they think I would be interested in reading. So I usually get the news a day late. But
It
it's
could be a lot,
because
you know.
I just want people to know because sometimes like if you refer to an article or something, it's possible that I have not read it. So that's on me. And Joe, can you give a quick explanation about yourself?
Sure. I'm a Twin Cities-based mathematician. I work on building diagnostic software for cancer. I published a paper on COVID. That's my day job. What I'm kind of known for on Instagram is reporting on kind of inequity in the food world. It touches on restaurants, food media, this past summer, I reported on mold situation at Squirrel, LA-based restaurant. I reported on Prince Street. Those are just some major cases. I'm not, a professional food writer. I don't do this for a living. My full-time job is mathematician.
Cool. And it's funny because people started asking me once you posted about this talk, people started writing to me and asking like, why would I want to do this interview? Because obviously there are a lot of people I know and been friendly with who don't like you and don't like what you do. And then there are plenty of other people who like really want to hear more. And my angle on all of it is that I want to know if something funky is going on, I got to keep my eyes out for it because I'm, not representing, but working with a lot of pizzerias. I don't work for any of them, totally independent from them. But of course, through association, we all have to be really careful about who and what we associate with lately. And that's part of why I wanted to talk to you, because I also know that some people maybe aren't able to read through all of your posts. You refer to the posts a lot. You have highlights. It's a lot of text on top of text on top of text. I think this might be a good way to explain some things without having it just be throwing text up.
Yeah, I think fair enough. And hopefully I can clarify everything for people. I am working on a part 2 to my part 1 of the Falco article, which is on my website. So that'll be, a little bit easier to follow for some people who prefer prose and long form, but yeah, this should help, I think.
Cool. And I see Mikey Obsauced is in here. Hey, Mikey. And Mikey is saying he's excited that I'm doing this, but I do want to clarify that I'm doing this like not because I love what Joe writes or not because I love the people who Joe attacks. It's because
a little bit of both.
I'm an optimistic person. I like to think that like the pizza community that I really like a lot has become cohesive and really helpful. And now is a point where it's not. And that might be the fault of certain people, absolutely. But I want to make sure to have a chance to clarify some of that stuff just so people can understand what it is we're going at. So anyway, I want to know before we even talk about any specific people, what are the things that catch your attention? What makes you kind of go after somebody in your writing?
Well, it's not like, it doesn't always start out as go after. Sometimes it's like something happens and it's just kind of like, okay, let's see. Recently I took on a case, the God of Cookery, Instagram presence, and it started out as a like, let's see what happens here, what's going on, and it kind of evolved into actually evidence that this guy was like intentionally misreporting stories for a while and causing a lot of harm for people. And so, in general, I kind of go where I can. I don't always have information, but also, it has to be something where I have something novel. If Eater is reporting on something and I don't have anything to add, what's the point? And so it's generally like, I feel like this is important and I feel like I have something important to say and I feel like this actually has consequences for the food world. And, generally I might have like some actionable thing that I want to see. Sometimes it's just like, I think people should be aware. But yeah, that's a little bit it. I think.
Well, Joe, I'm sorry to interrupt, but let me clarify a little bit. What are the transgressions that set you off to want to spend a lot of time on somebody?
Usually it's forms of abuse. It could be racialized abuse. It could be just gendered abuse. It could be, worker abuse. I've seen cases where restaurants aren't paying workers fairly. Earlier in COVID, there were places hiding COVID cases, risking staff members. So it's just kind of like when people are in a bad situation and they can't really do something about it on their own sometimes. Mm-hmm. I started calling myself food antagonist as a kind of tongue-in-cheek reference to the idea that people are upset with me because I'm kind of this antagonist to the status quo. And I think, you're mad at the guy rocking the boat if you're happy with the boat's going. And so I'm kind of trying to rock the boat and change the course, somewhat in that sense.
Right. But in the same way, the person rocking the boat is not invincible because they have discovered that the boat is off course.
No, and I think I try to support everything I claim with as much evidence as possible. Ever since I could, I've added swipe up links to my stories. Before that, it was like link in my bio, check this out. My article on Anthony Falco has links to legal documents that you can see for yourself. I think if there's one takeaway from my presence, it's that people need to think critically. They need to think critically about what they're reading and consider the source of what they're reading and the implications of that stuff. And I think, if I can't help people do that, and if I can't, hold myself to a place where like people should be doing that for me, like what's the point? And so I want people to read, the sources. I want people to swipe up on things. I want people to say like, hey, Joe, you made a mistake or you got this wrong, And so, yeah, I try to give as much supporting evidence as possible because I think it makes the case stronger and it keeps me honest.
Yeah. Okay. So at what point did the obsession with Anthony begin?
I think obsession is a little bit loaded. I handle a lot of cases. I think, Falco is one of many. I happen to have an article on my website kind of because I took it on before my account kind of exploded. And it just became... I'm on Instagram because it's just easier to report on there. But it's hard to say when it started. I think Anthony's one of the earlier people I've met in the pizza world. Hard
is it fair to say
before
you spent the most time on him, or is that not correct?
I don't know if that's correct. I spent a lot of time on a lot of people. It might be like a lot of time in like I've been handling, talking about him for a while, and it's been on and off for like a large period, but I've done a lot of reporting on a lot of people. I mean, I've got 4 story highlights on Squirrel. I've got, 2 on Clarence Kwan, the God of Cookery. A few on Prince Street. There's a lot. I would say, he's one of the big ones. And it really kind of precipitated when I just started to hear from more and more people that he harmed. People that were just frustrated that the pizza world kind of didn't care. And I think that's reflected in my first article where, I kind of geared it toward these things that I thought the pizza world would care about. That is the misrepresentation of his career at Roberta's, not the bigotry and other things that I've reported on my Instagram, which is really, I think, because
Joe, there's a good question that just came in the stream of things. Have you met Falco in person?
I've not met Falco in person.
Okay. I know that you've conversed with him probably over the years or however long it's been. Have you, what's the degree at which you have conversed with him? Is it always like, hey, I want to let you know I'm going to write something? Or is it something like him writing to you? Or is it always text? Or what is it like?
It was always text-based. He would respond to my story a lot. And if, you go through the Falco/bigotry highlight, that's all conversations. Well, mostly conversations I had with him. There's conversations other people had with him. And that's through like story responses on Instagram, that sort of thing. He, shut down, once he realized that I was writing a story, you can't keep something like that under wraps for long when you're talking to that many people. He shut down pretty intensely and he sent some threats to a mutual friend. So that's kind of how that went. Yeah.
So, but what was the instance that, and I'm avoiding using the word that triggered the obsession, just because that word has so much baggage right now. But what was the instance? What was like the transgression that set you off on that course?
I think it's hard to say. It's like, who's the first person I talked to?
I'm not asking. Like,
yeah.
It's more about like what was the violation? Because in your article you make a couple of main accusations, like these are the crimes.
Yeah.
First of all, can you lay out what those crimes are, and then
well, so the article itself is based around this idea that Anthony Falco misrepresented his role at Roberta's, made himself seem like a partner, made him seem like he was the main figure there, when that wasn't the case, and when people were marginalized actively. And
right.
Some specific examples.
I'm sorry, Joe. Just real quickly, so people are asking about what we're talking about. We're talking about Anthony Falco, people in the restaurant world,
Yeah,
people
yeah.
who should be held accountable for things. And then what you're mentioning right now is after working at Roberta's, the accusation is that he misrepresented his role there, which is pretty clear that he was not an owner or a founder and
Yeah.
wasn't working there.
And I would say it was during there
Yeah.
too, but I think it really came to head after that. There was a Bon Appetit article that referenced him as the man who put Roberta's on the map. And as recently as I believe it was December, a publicist on behalf of Falco referenced that, so it's being perpetuated actively.
But about the, in your article, when you talk about him representing himself as a partner, I reread the article today just to make sure I knew what was going on. But that's a reference to him saying he was a partner in the mobile business because he had an oven and he was a not technically like a legal partner, but a profit split.
Yeah. So in the article, he's made multiple references to being a partner, but one of the references. Well, you're really stretching my knowledge here, but I believe it was the Vox interview where he mentioned being a profit-sharing partner. The article links to it,
but I just want to clarify that that's in the mobile section, not profit. At least based on your article, he never claimed profit sharing in Roberta's, just in that mobile oven, which I don't know if he was or was not.
If I remember correctly, it was an unqualified profit sharing claim, but that wasn't the exclusive claim to partnership, and it was a sticking point. I mean, it was a problem to the point that I'm trying to think of how I can word this. There's certain things I can't say. He regularly represented himself as a major player, if not specifically a partner, and he has specifically represented himself as an unqualified partner, not specifically for the mobile pizza operation.
Mm-hmm.
But that article was focused on that. It was focused on him kind of fostering an abusive environment at Roberta's. He's sexualized employees that worked there. It focuses on the lawsuit.
And just to clarify that the sexualized employees, you quoted that he said something about wanting to sleep with somebody who was on the staff, and said somebody who didn't really know him very well, and obviously that's kind of jarring. Yeah,
he remarked to an employee who was a subordinate that he wanted to, quote, fuck another subordinate employee, which is, obviously problematic. We're talking about Bill Gates right now on my Instagram story and how he, did the same thing with subordinates. Anyway, so yeah, the article
but different from when I read the story, when you said, "Oh, it's coming," and I was like, okay, I got to read this because obviously, I know him and I wanted to read it to know the things that obviously he's not telling me. Was there any direct transgression that he committed in that way, or was it did that happen multiple times?
I think the thing with the article was I knew a lot more than what I put into that article. I mean, there's a reason it's a part 1.
Yeah, there's part 2, right?
There's a part 2. I'm working on part 2, and that's coming. And I'm kind of trying to avoid. I've got a list of things I can say and some things I'm not going to say.
Sure.
But
I do invite you to if you can say whatever you can, just because we're talking about a person, and I want to make sure that it's not. I think people are going to read the part 2 regardless.
I want to be clear that I don't say something unless I am confident in the accuracy of it and that it's not going to put anyone at risk as a source. And so, if I don't say something, it's generally because I think it's for the best, and I don't think it serves anyone to go there. But I will say, when I wrote part 1, I was fully aware of everything, for the most part, that was in the Falco bigotry highlight. And so it's hard to say, I was aware that he presented himself as a major figure and marginalized others. But I was also aware that he was saying things like race isn't real and mocking, the eyes of Asian people, stuff like that I was aware of. And so
let's take each thing just one at a time, just because I really want to avoid throwing things out there and having any viewer just take them, and extrapolate what they want from them. I guess the first thing is with the misrepresenting himself. Yeah, articles have said that he was this major player, and he never denied any of that because obviously, as you say in the blog post, he is an expert marketer. That's and you even quote people who worked with him saying, He's more of a business person. He's a great marketer. Like, that's the thing that people credit him for. So
If I had to give him props for anything, he's done a really great job of marketing himself.
No, he absolutely has. And like, it's a means of marketing that like I'm not personally into for myself, but I will say, people have written that I like created pizza tours and things like that. And I absolutely have not, but I certainly didn't go after them and say, can you like retract your book?
No. And I think, obviously, it's hard to ask somebody to, police everything written about them. But I think the fact is, Anthony Falco explicitly referred to Angela Womack as his assistant, as his protege. I
saw that in the article, yeah.
When they appeared together on Brooklyn Pizza Crew podcast, it was titled Anthony Falco and the Rad Times Pizza Crew. And the fact is, Angela Womack created Rad Times Pizza. And he was recognized in the title. And he's, a person of color working in pizza. He's owned restaurants. There's a reason why Anthony Falco is the keynote speaker at Pizza Expo and Angela Womack isn't, and it's not skill-based.
Right. But what's the difference between being a jerk and being abusive?
I think it comes down to how much you empathize with the people harmed. I think the fact is he's caused immense harm for a lot of people. And I think the support of the pizza world, in general, has sent a clear signal that it doesn't care about those people that are harmed. I mean, when somebody is mocking an Asian person's eyes, you can see this for yourself in my Falco bigotry highlight. When he's defending Allison Roman for
wait, let's just pause on the eyes thing.
Yeah.
So, because I know who it is that you're talking about, and I want to leave a name out of it because that name is not involved.
The person in the picture is not pertinent to the actual picture.
Right, but didn't that person reach out to you and explain that that person was a friend of his and that they didn't like that you posted that because you were taking things out of context?
I am not at liberty to talk about what I've spoken with anyone. I think the fact is, last summer, there was a picture released of Adam Rappaport.
Wait, I'm sorry. Before we go on Adam Rappaport, I just want to clarify this because I know these people involved, and I know in that particular instance, not to say that it's ever right to say something like that, but in that instance, I know that this person didn't agree with your perspective on the situation. And that you told that person that it didn't matter what they thought about it because it was a bigger picture.
I'm going to explain the full context of this picture.
Great.
Okay. And I think for that, I need to just draw from this Adam Rappaport situation. So over the summer, there was this whole implosion at Bon Appetit that started when Tammy Taplamarian released a picture of Adam Rappaport in brownface. The sentiments of the person in that photo with Adam Rappaport are not relevant to the harm in that photo.
The sentiments of which person?
There was another person in the photo with Adam Rappaport. It's completely analogous to the Falco photo where he's in a picture with another person and he says, which one of us is Asian? And he's squinting his eyes. And I think it is not relevant what the other person in the picture thinks. I think this has bigger implications than the other person in the picture. And I don't think...
Somebody just pointed out in the comments about how Instagram is tough because when you only see a clip, you don't get full context. And it should be said that like Falco went and deleted that comment because clearly it was the wrong thing to say. Like clearly he knew that wasn't a good thing to say. He went back. Maybe I wish there would have been an apology. Must have regretted it and deleted. Right?
I reported that he deleted it. He actually deleted it right after Adam Rappaport got nuked for this thing.
Well, now it was like a couple weeks later.
Yeah, it was weeks later. That's what I reported.
Well, it was. I think wasn't it 3 weeks later? Well, it doesn't really matter how many weeks because the point is he knew that was wrong. This is not a person. This is not a thing that's okay to say in any context because he threw it right out there in the middle of nowhere. but I'm responding to this comment that just popped up about that, like, there's more context, that when we see only a clip on a conversation or on Instagram or something like that, that we don't really see the full thing. Of course, that's not the only client.
In my story, I gave the context that he removed it. And I think also important context is that it's not like he had some sort of change of heart at that moment, deleted it. I think, he has continually, even in this past year, perpetuated these same behaviors. After Alison Roman had her implosion, mocking Marie Kondo's accent, mocking and attacking Chrissy Teigen, he posted on Alison Roman's post about the situation, and told her to power through it and keep on going. It's clear that he is more willing to empathize with these people that are, harming persons of color. He attacked Ben and Jerry's after they posted a really robust breakdown of toppling white supremacy. He posted about how their parent company is, problematic, but it was just a copy and paste from, I think, Wikipedia. And I think you could look at that and say, like, well, Unilever is problematic, but I think the fact is that doesn't change the sentiment, and it doesn't change the fact that Ben and Jerry's put an enormous effort into having that independence to do social justice work.
Oh, it definitely is the wrong time to step in.
It's the wrong time to step in, and I think the bigger issue is, why was he motivated to do that? And I think at the end of the day, these behaviors it's his nature. I think he deleted that comment about the mocking Asian eyes because he realized he would get in trouble for it. And I think there's a mountain of evidence that supports that.
Well, yeah, it maybe because he realized it was wrong to say. Now, somebody wrote in the comments, and I totally agree, deleting something is not equivalent to an apology. And I think that's the thing that's missing from all this, because the times he's tried to apologize haven't come out. They like started as an apology, but haven't really ended as one. Is that?
Yeah. So the most recent one, owner of Scar's Pizza, reposted, some of the things I've written. And after that, I think it was the next day, he made a statement talking about how, he's made a lot of mistakes and he's learned from mistakes, and that the mistake almost cost him his marriage. And it was this kind of like feel good sentiment, like, oh yeah, like we all make mistakes, but it really didn't say anything about what he did. It was more of this continued gaslighting of everyone that has called him out. I mean, as it stands, a journalist told me that his publicist, Jay Strell, in the process of promoting this book, Pizza Czar, he called me crazy. He said that I have not been embraced by mainstream food media. It was an attempt to discredit me. And so I think, clearly there's this effort for Anthony Falco to hide from the harm that he's caused. He will not mention me by name because he doesn't want people to actually read the stuff. And I think that's why it's so important that you're doing this chat right now, because people have the freedom to see for themselves and read about it.
Yeah, that's exactly the purpose of all this, is because I think that it's way better to hear the things being said and there can be a conversation rather than it just be slapped stuff on there. Because, and I'll say this again, I said this kind of in the beginning, like my whole goal with the conversation is to try to get everything out there very clearly and hold accountable Anthony for things that he's done, because I've known Anthony for years. I consider myself a friend of his. That doesn't mean that I'm willing to let him do things that shouldn't be done or said. Being somebody's friend does not mean that you're going to step in and cover for them or defend them, because he's somebody I met through pizza, and I've experienced him enough to feel like I kind of know him. And I what I want is to figure out, and really this is like the big question is, and people are already talking about it in the comments over here, is what is the thing that you expect from him or hope from him? Is there a path to redemption?
I think this is something I've talked about a lot with regard to other people, but also Falco, specifically in my stories. I think there's like an apologies highlight. But essentially, there's two things here. We can forgive somebody for whatever reason we want, generally it's because they've apologized and we're satisfied. But I think when these things happen that are bad to the level that, the things that Falco did are bad, I think it's an important time to step back and to look at the position that these people are in, that Falco's in, and say, should they have been in that position? Should they return to that position? Because I think no one's entitled to that position. And forgiveness doesn't necessarily equal that.
So are you saying that there's no path to redemption?
I'm saying that he can be redeemed. And I could say, I think Falco deserves forgiveness. Whatever. Not that it's my place to say that, but I could say that. But that doesn't mean I also believe that he should be the keynote speaker at Pizza Expo, that, everyone in the industry should be promoting him as this, guy that put Roberta's on the map. I think, I think redemption is not equivalent to maintaining that position. And I think beyond that, it's premature to even talk about redemption when he is still perpetuating these problematic behaviors, still perpetuating the myth that he put Roberta's on the map, actively discrediting me through his publicist, Jay Strell. Why talk about redemption when he hasn't even apologized or changed course at all?
Right, but is there? Let's just assume that there's
theoretically,
because
yeah.
I don't want to exist in the world where we can't talk about possible redemption.
I don't.
Absolutely, he's done things to people that were wrong. He's hurt people. There are people who write to you all the time that said he did X, Y, Z to me. That's a person who's directly saying that something happened that they didn't appreciate.
I'm still interviewing them actively right now. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure. I mean, as you're writing part 2 and as we're talking about this,
yeah,
all that stuff. But he's done things in the past he should be held accountable for.
Yeah.
Are any of these transgressions, besides things like the press release going out for the book that said the guy who put Roberta's on the map is inane to me, that he would have let that go out. But what is there that's going on now?
I'm
just curious to know, is this all stuff 4 or 5 years ago or more? What's been going on recently?
Well, let me clarify one point. It wasn't Jay Strell who sent out that email. It was another publicist working on behalf of Falco. You can see that.
But I'm just holding him
I just wanted to clarify because you used he as the pronoun. I just wanted to clarify that wasn't him. I think, a lot of this stuff was recently. A lot of those examples were in the past year. The Ben and Jerry's thing, the Allison Roman thing, the act of discrediting. He was going around at the height of COVID to Miami, to Indonesia, taking maskless photos. I think it's all the same behavior. And so I think, first of all, if you're continuing these behaviors, I still think the old behaviors are relevant because it's representative of his current state of existence. And I think, the fact is I talk about in my article that he's, been described as this master of apologies. That's what he fancies himself, because I think that's how he gets away with all of this abuse. And so I think, now he's got a book coming out. My article was out, a year ago. I've gotten bigger since. I think he didn't count on that. And so he's on this kind of apology tour doing his Master of Apologies thing. But I think there's enough data points that I've cited that are in the past year, some very recently, like the discrediting through Jay Strell, that I think it's all relevant. And I think for us to consider redeeming him, whatever that means, he has to acknowledge that and reckon with that. And after that, I think everyone needs to say, should he be in this position? And I think since, it's very clear that he did misrepresent himself at Roberta's, I think the idea that he put it on the map is flawed, and that's generous. I'm wondering, why isn't the pizza world saying, hey, let's stop. We can forgive him. I don't think they should because he hasn't apologized or anything, but maybe he shouldn't be in that position.
I don't think anybody, I think everybody deserves forgiveness, but they have to earn that. And I know Mikey wrote a comment a few minutes ago about that Anthony apologized to him, but he didn't
Yep.
feel like it was genuine. I mean, people deserve to be apologized to.
He asked if he need Anthony asked Mikey if he needed an apology. It was this kind of master of apology bullshit where he's like, do you require an apology? I'll give you one. I'll write one out for you. It's meaningless. It's him just checking
ask somebody if they require an apology.
What's that?
You shouldn't have to ask somebody if they require.
No, and I
that's
think,
not an apology.
I think he's trying to kind of get his ducks in a row. He's trying to. I've seen before, I started writing this, I saw him up close and personal actively discredit people who have spoken out against him. He called this one person who's Polish, he told him to go make pierogi, not pizza, because he perceived them to not be Italian. And then when they revealed that they were partially Italian, it wasn't enough. And so I think
that is a total dick thing to say. I mean,
yeah, and I think that's really similar to some other stuff I reported on with identity gatekeeping, and there's so much of that kind of ethnocentrism even in his book, where he talks about
wait a second, have you read the book?
I read the book. Yeah.
Whoa, I did not expect that.
I do my homework.
Yeah. Wait, did you buy the book?
I did not buy the book.
Okay. I'm sorry, you do not have to answer
I was gonna solicit bookshops to like, hey, I'll Venmo you 50 books, like just take it off the shelf and don't mark it. I did not buy it. I obtained it legally.
Oh no questions. I'm certainly not making any accusations. I'm really just want to clarify because like and somebody asked before about like, who am I to, I think the way they even phrased it was like to be a decider in any of this. I'm absolutely not. I make no decisions for anybody. I am not Anthony. I am not his representative. I know him, but the way that I treat anybody I know is I want to get a full understanding of this. And that's why it was important for me I know that Joe does not like Anthony. I know that anything that he's writing, and all these things that he's done in the past, Joe is funneling them out to everybody.
Well,
so
wait,
that's why I'm saying, I'm just explaining why this conversation is like, you're not going to talk to Anthony about it because I think that would be like a yelling match.
I think the fact is, I may not like somebody, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to report on them in a way that isn't accurate or fair. That doesn't mean it's balanced, but it's fair. And I think, for example, I've talked a lot about Alex Delaney, formerly of Bon Appetit. He's done some shit. Doesn't really matter. But he was wronged in one instance in another story I wrote, and I talked about it. And I think, if I got something wrong, I talk about it. I'll correct the record. But I don't think it's as simple as I don't like Anthony, because that's not how this works. I've reported on so many people that I had no interest in prior. I mean, I didn't even know the owner of Squirrel's name, as far as I remember, before I started talking about it. Now, you can't Google her without seeing my name. It's not about that.
So getting back to the whole, where do we go from here situation is, what is the thing that, somebody in his position, in Anthony's position, what is the hope for them to heal themselves or to come out of this?
Anthony Falco's a guy that he joined Rat Times Pizza, Angelo Womack's pizza.
Right, consulting.
Great, follow Rat Times Pizza, it's great. He joined that. When Angelo Womack wanted to separate, Falco made it a clear demand that Angelo had to sign a non-disparagement agreement to get separated out. What does that mean? It means that Angelo can't say anything even critical of Anthony Falco. And so what I'd like to see is Anthony Falco admit the harms, maybe release the guy that can speak to it from his non-disparagement agreement. I think he should back down from the positions he's obtained falsely, namely the Pizza Expo keynote speaker position. I think he should stop referencing himself as the man that put Roberta's on the map. I think he should stop perpetuating falsehoods and abuse. I think that's the first step. And then I think when considered for future opportunities, even if forgiven, he shouldn't be like, well, it's Anthony, let's just put him up there, he's great, because decidedly he's not. And I think there's other people that not only ought to be there in those positions, but I think it sends an important message if they are, that the pizza world isn't more interested in promoting these toxic white male abusers, and that they're willing to spread the love, so to speak, to a person of color, for example, Angela Womack. There's tons of other people that'd be great to see who haven't, done the things that Anthony's done. I think, at this point, we can talk all we want about this redemption, what he should do, but the fact is the pizza world needs to reckon with the fact that they've enabled this man because of his power, and he has a lot of it. They've promoted him. They've, done that for years, and it's been at the cost of promoting other people. It's been sending this message that the people Anthony has harmed aren't important. And I think it's not only what Anthony has to reckon with, it's what does the pizza world have to reckon with for enabling him. And so I think, his first step, to answer your question, is probably admit what he's done and step back. Mm-hmm. And I think the pizza world needs to adapt to this world where we don't promote toxic people.
Right. Okay. So you just mentioned about other people being in that position. Can you who are some other people who are not getting enough respect that we can kind of promote to other folks besides we know Angelo?
I think, there's people I think do really great work in the pizza world. Whenever I name people, I think it could go, somebody be like, whoa, you did this. I named Angela Womack. I mentioned Scar earlier. I think they both, are really talented people who have felt, I don't want to speak for them, but I can't imagine how they feel seeing the pizza world promote Anthony Falco. I know Darren Ezzo, I assume it's Darren Ezzo running the Ezzo.
Wait a second. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but just because Lou Tomjack is mentioning Chardell Hughes, I want to give Chardell a shout out.
Yeah.
I don't want to, these are not words coming out of your mouth. It's just that while people are typing this stuff, I want to announce it.
Red Sauce Pizza in Portland. Yeah. It's hard on the spot to come up with these names, but
yeah. But wait, I know you and I have talked about this before. I want to ask you again, though. I know you spend time going after people for the transgressions. Is there any part of you that might work on promoting the people who are doing great things and not getting enough promotion?
So I'm a mathematician by day, and I think mathematically you can say I can prove this is wrong, but you can't you can prove that somebody has done something, but you can't prove that they'll never do something. And so I think it's a sticky situation. Just today I talked about Emmett's, who I love their hot poppy. I love, the hot dog. Everything there is great. And I'll talk about that. But I think to make my account about promoting positivity, I just can't right now because it's not really what's needed. I'll do it when I can, but I can't, change my focus. I love Lindustry. I've talked about Lindustry. The burrata slice is just incredible. The square, whatever style he's doing, just great. That's Massimo at Lindustry. And I think there's just so many I can't name, and I'm sorry to everyone who I have forgotten.
Everybody who's watching, this is not like Joe's.
Yeah, it's up on the hot seat.
Yeah, it's. I don't want to say I'm not putting you on the spot because obviously this is a live thing, and that's part of it.
It's inherently on the spot, yeah.
But and it's only because I see a lot of value in promoting the people who aren't getting talked about. I had a conversation about it the other day with Scar, and it's hey, who is out there who's not getting talked about? Who's not? And Scar and I were talking about these lists that come out, and of course these lists are always inane. I don't like any of them. But the fact is that a list of pizzerias says something, and it's a lot of marketing for people. So
yeah, and I think
who's not on those lists?
When I talked about initially, it was Infatuation, and they didn't have Scar on the list, which it's okay, not every list is gonna have Scar. I think Scars is great. I think it should be on every list, but whatever. It didn't have Scars, and it made me realize there's not a single pizzeria owned by a person of color on that list at that time. And when I talked about that it's like Anthony Falco was saying, like, race isn't real, and what is a person of color, and like, those sorts of things. And that was only, a couple of years ago. But
I read that in your
yeah, you
in
can
the
read it for
highlight.
yourself. It's a lot.
Do
There's a
you
lot.
think? I mean, of course, like race is it's a social construct. It's not a thing that's in DNA.
Oh, it is in
But
DNA, actually. You could even look at the COVID vaccine and see that, like, I'm an Ashkenazi Jew. The efficacy of a vaccine might be slightly different than like a black person or a Western European person. Like, everyone's DNA is different, but I think like the way that America and other countries perceive race, you could argue it's a social contract, but I think it's the argument that somebody makes because they don't want to engage in the discourse. They don't want to engage in, promoting people who aren't being promoted. Which that case was, people of color, black people. And, and so I think, it's this kind of excuse that is not really the point. It's just a weird argument. Yeah, you can read that yourself, but I think, the other thing, there's this idea of toxic positivity culture where, I'm often told, like, be positive, say positive things. And I think the problem with that is it's not really positive because it lets all this toxic activity, this abuse perpetuate, because you're only talking about the nice things. You're not talking about like the people that are being harmed and the harms that, are occurring to them. And I think it's one thing to say like, I love the pizza at this restaurant and I'm happy to do that. And I'm going to try to do it more. I did a little bit today. But I think, I could never, pivot my presence to be about promoting people in that way, because I think there's just, every day I have hundreds and hundreds of DMs, just people telling me about stuff, stuff that's happened to them, stuff that's happened, in their workplace or wherever, that they desperately need help with. And so to dedicate my account to, just positivity, I think would be a failing.
So somebody in the comments is mentioning about giving people some resources. Like Joe and I are talking at this moment, but if anybody has any good resources that they think would help people understand like this whole conversation better, including myself, including Joe, all of us, please put it in there. I mean, even like this thing I just said a couple of seconds ago about race, like please educate me more. I absolutely saying like people are totally treated differently all over the world, and that's majorly problematic. So like please jump in there, but I want to leave a couple minutes right now to go into this question zone.
Sure.
Because Instagram's going to cut us off pretty soon.
Okay.
So if anybody, please, if you have questions, please put them in there. I would love to ask what's going on over here. Okay, so I'm going to pop into here right now, and it looks like I'm skipping the ones that seem like they're kind of inane, by the way.
Yeah, and I can try to post some resources like that.
None that are good. Sorry. There's just like no good questions in there. I'm happy to send them to you later. They're just kind of things that we've already talked about are not great. Anyway, let's see. Oh, interesting. Well, there's a lot of people just telling me about things. Yeah, I mean, look, this live thing was to have a back and forth and not just have it be a text-based thing. Yeah. I guess if there's any other questions, please drop them into the question zone, because I think that would be cool if anybody has a question for.
I guess I can ask. I can ask a question if you're okay with that.
Yeah, of course.
What's your next step? Like, what's next after this chat? Has this changed your position on promoting Pizza Czar? Has this changed your position on promoting people in general?
It's definitely made me think a lot about like looking into more people, because obviously like I wish there was a source for understanding somebody's background, like kind of in the way that you said toxic positivity. Maybe this wasn't related to it, but how you said like promoting somebody, you might run into in the future that there's something problematic in their past, and then suddenly you got to go back, and which is like, it's true. Yeah. I guess I want to be more sensitive to that kind of thing, but I also think it's important to hold accountable anybody who's writing about that stuff to make sure that the accusations all have backup, because earlier in the conversation, we talked a lot about your article. We had part one, and there's a lot of things in the article that I think, like,
it's all supported.
But I think take away from the accusations, because there's a lot of like dangling accusations and presumptions.
What dangling accusation?
Like there are like things in the article where it mentions something like there's a rhetorical at the end of a paragraph. You know what I mean? Like things that are like, oh, or did this happen on purpose, or was it a coincidence? These are not direct quotes. I'm just saying because I read it like earlier today. But things like that, is part two going to be more information, like newer instances, or is it more?
Let me, I'll address part two, but I also want to say, one of those dangling questions was when Anthony Falco told one of his subordinate employees that he wanted to, quote, fuck another subordinate employee, I asked, does that mean he was trying to fuck a subordinate employee? That was one of my rhetorical questions. And I don't think that takes away from the statement. And I think beyond that, this idea of, holding me accountable and holding my sources accountable, I try to do that. I try to give as much context. But I think the fact is, people like Anthony Falco have this retort, like Joe doesn't work in the restaurant industry. And I think, and he says all this stuff. And I think the idea behind that is that I won't face retribution. I won't be blacklisted for doing what I do. And I think, this, hold Joe accountable is Falco's refrain in that sense. I get that, you want to see sources. I have sources. I link to legal documents. I have quotes from witnesses, and they're anonymized, but they're quotes. And so I think, that's all there. As far as part two goes, part two's not written for the pizza world. At this point, I didn't include the bigotry stuff because I didn't think the pizza world cared. Part two is going to focus on that. It's going to focus on other abuse. And it'll be as well supported as part one was.
Okay. And any idea when part two is happening? I know.
No.
You said earlier.
When I wrote when I was doing my pizza article, my New York style pizza article, which I'm going to shamelessly plug. It's on my website, link in my bio. Anyway, when I was writing that, I think I was saying in the spring, it would be like last spring, it'd be soon. And it didn't come out, I think, until the fall. I don't know. My life is crazy. I have a full-time job. This isn't it. I'm going to try to do it soon. Sorry.
No, it's Joe. It's funny because somebody in the comments earlier said, when does Joe sleep? Because obviously it's a lot of work that you put in.
I need to sleep more.
Yeah.
I desperately need to sleep more, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you get some sleep. Whenever that part two is happening, then
I will send you a copy directly.
I'll see it on your feed.
Okay.
I'll be there for it. Anyway, so I do want to finish answering the question about like what's the next step and everything. Is that I absolutely believe that people make mistakes. They should be held accountable. That it doesn't, just because you apologize doesn't mean that you're free to go forever. But I do think that there has to be some kind of a path to redemption for anybody who screws up a lot. Everybody goes through that. The screw ups that he has, according to your article, have been like repetitive, and
according
it's
to
not
the
just somebody slipping up at one
in
point.
My article.
That's my hope, is just that there's some kind of a path to somebody. And look, I know people in the comments are saying, "What, are you kidding? Like this is a mistake."
I mean, I have to ask, are you kidding? I mean, does this mean you want a path to redemption for him being like the keynote speaker at Pizza Expo? Like, is that
that's a question for Pizza Expo. I certainly don't work at Pizza Expo, but what I'm saying is for anybody, Falco, anybody, I want to know, like, I want to give people a way that they can help themselves. And that's the big thing. That's all it is.
I want Anthony Falco to be in a position where he can get help. I also don't want to see him promoted to the top of the pizza world ever again, because I think that's been wasted on him.
Mm-hmm. So part two is coming soon.
It's coming soon-ish.
And anybody has any other questions, like, please, you can drop them. I'm going to save this video to the, to the grid. You can put questions and comments into that. Hopefully, thanks to everybody for watching this far. it's helpful. I'm going to re-examine all of it too, because I had this conversation because I wanted to understand more about it. And it's going to make me want to ask some more questions and reread the article for sure. I know I read it earlier today again, but
well, I'm glad to hear that. And, thanks for having me on.
Well, yeah, it's frustrating to me to read something without being able to ask questions. And I'm trying to
I can add a
work
comment
on this
section
myself too, because I work with all these pizzerias and it makes me think about like, what is the line? At what point is somebody okay or not okay? I don't agree with the political leanings of everybody who I work with. I don't know what past they have. Some people have, criminal past. Is that something I need to be careful about?
Well, it's not just, that. It's that, his position in the pizza world is founded on his misrepresentation. So it's like he shouldn't even be there. It's kind of like, to quote Mean Girls, it's like you don't even belong here. He doesn't belong here. And so I think it's not where the line is. It's, like he shouldn't even be in the discourse about this. But as far as the line goes, it's somewhere less than what Prince Street did, what Falco did, what Squirrel did. I think I try to cast my rod beyond that. I try to make it very clear that this person is problematic, and it's not really a question of like, are they past the line? If it's questionable, I don't want to get involved in that.
Nick just brought up about that. I'm glad that you brought Prince Street Pizza thing and what's going to happen there. I know that they're claiming that they've sold it to the staff. Do you know anything about that? If they've really sold the business to the staff? Okay,
so to my knowledge, they have not sold it. I haven't heard anything in a little while, but I've checked in. They are still owners of New York and LA. Miami, I think, is licensing the name.
I didn't even know there was a Miami.
There's a Miami. Look, I still don't think people should go there because it promotes the idea of Prince Street, which puts money in the pockets of people who call Asian people mongrels. It's bad, but that's the state of things as of like a month or two ago. I don't think it's changed. Believe me, I think I would hear about it because I think the person who bought it would be very anxious to let me know. Because I'll let everyone know.
Like the manager from the Manhattan location, I talked to him like a week after it happened, and he was telling me about people were like threatening the staff and being violent, and I'm like, this sucks because it's like not the staff's fault. I mean, well, at least not those comments. There are other accusations against the staff.
The way I operate is that I shut that sort of thing down as soon as I see it. I do not do personal attacks, do not do threats. If you read my story, you'll see I cran out that sort of shit. I don't engage in that. And from what I've seen, the people that comment after reading my stuff do not perpetuate that. The fact is they called Asian people mongrels. It got put into the Today, it got put into Eater, it got put in all sorts of publications. And at some point...
And it's a lot because you boosted it.
It's a story because I was screaming at the top of my lungs for somebody to cover it. But that doesn't mean it shouldn't have been covered. And I think, the people that are harmed by those comments are really glad in general, from what I've heard, that it got published. And it's sad that, if the staff are being threatened, but that can't be a reason to not report things.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just letting you know a call that I got from him. That does not excuse anything that happened leading up to it. It's a shame that people are taking it out on the wrong folks.
Absolutely. And the same goes for Squirrel. Don't threaten the staff.
I read the Squirrel thing once. I had never heard of the restaurant. As I said, I'm not really
it's LA.
On restaurant stuff. Yeah. But I mean,
that was bad. That was a bad situation. Yeah.
Listen, Joe, I want to, before Instagram like cuts us off automatically, I want to like seal everything up and thank everybody for watching. And thanks for all this. I guess if anybody has questions, they can message you directly.
Yeah, they can message me. I'll post questions in my story. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry I misquoted Mean Girls slightly. I feel like I didn't get back to that. Yeah. So ask.
All right, cool.
I'll try to answer them.
Well, thanks for everybody for hanging out, and I guess we'll see what happens coming up, and we'll look out for part 2.
Great, thank you.
All right, thanks, Joe. Oh, and read Joe's pizza article because that is pretty good.
Thanks. All right, take care.
All right, bye, everybody.